Don't worry, you got a lot of crazy. So you got a lot of crazy family members out there. Just got to introduce you.
Right.
Is that Bob? Or is that Alan down there? Is
Oh.
Alan on too?
That's Nancy.
Oh gosh, that's Nancy. You got your hair cut.
Nancy, you cut your hair.
Hi.
You cut your
You
hair.
know?
That's what's different.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
Well,
Thank you.
it's so dark on the screen that it's hard to make out the features of people's faces.
Can you brighten it? Can you brighten your screen?
Turn down some of the
See,
lights.
Peggy, we all let our hair go gray and white.
Yeah, yeah.
So did Peggy.
There we go. I went into gallery mode. That's better.
Now, is everybody here except Peggy and I part of the Heinrich Franz family?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes, that is correct.
Well, I want them to know that I'm of Johann Franz, which was the youngest brother,
Youngest.
and of Heinrich, and
And Heinrich was the oldest brother.
oldest brother, exactly.
Here comes
actually,
Alan.
there was actually an older
There's
brother.
Alan. Hi.
Hey, Alan. Well, there were dead ones.
Bob. So that's some more Heinrich people.
Actually, I think Benjamin was older than Heinrich.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that today.
Oh, I can't remember that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Benjamin.
Let's
Oh.
see here.
Who's this? Who's B? Is that Bob?
It's
Well,
Bob
this-
Franz.
Bob's in the
Yeah,
lower
Bob
left
said he
corner.
was,
That's Bob France?
Yeah, and there's Alan.
I
Costa.
see
That's
Alan.
Costi. Hey,
Hola.
Alan.
Good night. That is
Well,
amazing.
we'll get into some more conversations. We should probably.
You
we should
going?
Yeah, we'll start it, and then Kelly, did you start the recording? I think, right?
I did.
Okay, so just so everyone knows that we are recording these because
There I
you
am.
know in 10 years from now we go back and we can remember all these funny times. So
And we'll be dead.
Yeah.
yeah.
Not
So I'm
yet.
Kevin Franz, and my sister Deanna Franz. She started all this, doing a bunch of genealogy, and so we're just as young, great great grandkids of Peter Heinrich or Peter Franz. We're like, let's start doing some discovery. So we're going to talk today. Susanne Frantz went back to the original homestead in Deutsche. How do you say it, Connie? Wymysle?
Wymysle, I think.
Say it again.
Wymysle?
I don't know. Whatever makes sense to you, I
Whatever
guess.
makes sense. Say it, Suzanne.
I
How would
think
you
it's
say?
like Wymysle.
Wymysle. Okay.
Wymysle.
All right.
But that's what I can remember.
Yeah. So she went back to the homestead, and I just thought, well, let's talk about her trip. So I'm gonna share the screen and then we'll go through it. So Dee, you gotta let me.
Well, and you guys, I was only able to do it because of what our grandmother, this genealogy that she worked on for years and years and years,
Mhm.
and she was doing all this by research
Oh, yeah.
in his
Yes,
book.
in his book here. This is Raymond's book. Let's see if I can get that on here. This
And
is
that's
the-
Connie's
the-
brother,
The
Yeah.
John Franz people, which is obviously
Johann.
which is
Johann.
Johann.
Connie's grandfather. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
See,
Raymond did
I'm
a great
just a
job on this.
I'm a granddaughter of that generation.
Mhm.
That's hard to believe, but that's true.
It is hard to believe. Well, because of the time lapse there. I mean, you're basically just, I mean, you're 2 generations away from.
You're
birth.
of an older brother, and I'm of the younger
Younger,
brother.
the baby of the family.
And then
Yeah.
my mom was younger, not the youngest, but second youngest. And then I was the youngest, and I'm 80 years old. So I'm actually a granddaughter of
Yeah.
all these folks. I mean,
You're a historic artifact.
yeah, I am. I'm so glad, Suzanne, you could go to Poland and
Yeah, we want to hear all about that. story.
Almost
So-
20 years ago too.
So let's get started on that. Dee Dee, you let it share? Okay.
Yeah, you're
So
good.
this is a picture of Suzanne in October 12th, 2002.
And
So-
that's number 15 in Deutsche Wymysle. I'm probably mispronouncing it.
You're doing good, good.
Thank you. And that is, according to Grandma's research, that was Peter Franz's family lived at number 15. And she said it was 3 houses from the church, and that house is 3 houses from the church. And it looks like it could have been 19th, for sure, it's probably 19th century. So it could be, where she said where their home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And then you said also there was, I've got a lot of pictures. I added this one in just minutes
That's
before
the
we started. This is the church. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute.
Yeah, that church, there's a photograph of that in Raymond's book that somebody took back in the 70s, I think. And the church had deteriorated since then, but you can recognize it by the cross on the top. And this is just a few doors down from the house. I wrote a pretty long email when I sent all this out in 2002. And Dennis actually has a copy of the email still.
I still have it as well. I have a copy
Okay,
of
so
it.
anybody who doesn't have a copy of it, you could email it to.
Yeah, I have to scan it and email it. Yeah.
But he's got it on his computer. He's still got it in
I
his email.
scanned it, I could send it to everybody I have email
Yeah.
addresses for.
And it pretty much says everything that I knew, that it's a teeny tiny poor village. It's clearly deteriorated from what it was when our family left in 1874.
That's
But
amazing. Yeah.
but I was able to go into this building.
Oh, you did?
And the people around there were very friendly, and we couldn't speak Polish, and we didn't want anybody to think we were there to reclaim any property, because that could have been a real fear, especially when we were standing in front of number 15 and taking photographs, because the people were looking at us out their windows. And but these people got the church open for us, and it's a ruin, but you could still see there was a balcony and some paintings on the walls, floral decorations. So it still stands. At least it was, I'm pretty sure it probably still stands. So this is where this was a Mennonite church.
Mhm.
Suzanne, was it a wood structure or a stone or?
Good question.
I don't know. It must be.
It's brick.
Brick, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
brick
with a
covered
fascia.
plaster. Yeah. With plaster.
Yeah.
Okay, all
And
right.
metal roof.
Well, and it probably was re-roofed at some time, but I don't know. I think it was a metal roof.
Yeah.
The whole place was very neat and tidy, but very poor. People were plowing with horses,
Mm.
and there were some old tractors. There was no shops. I couldn't see a school.
Mm.
It's about 25 miles or so from Warsaw.
So you flew into Warsaw and then just drove 25 miles to there, huh?
My friends had a car. I was living in Prague, and they were curious too. So we spent a whole day driving around there. The nearest big city or big town is called Plock, Plock. And surely they would have gone to Plock and got the train probably to Hamburg, where they got the ship to come to the United States.
Mhm.
And the thing is that I think it's important to remember that our family was not kicked out of Poland. Our family immigrated voluntarily. They sold their property. They were not destitute. They weren't wealthy, but they were not destitute. But they left because he had 4 draft age sons, and they were potentially going to be drafted into the army. And they're, of course, pacifists as Mennonites. So that's why they left.
What's interesting is, and I wrote this at the bottom, Peter was 38 years old when he married his wife Helena, who's 21 years old. So that,
21.
yeah, she was 17 years younger. And probably at that time, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Helena died before they left Poland. And so when I went to the little cemetery there, that was, of course, that's must be where they are, as well as I think 2 infants that died as well.
Right. Yeah. In fact, but this is where Peter, you went back to this little town here where Peter was born, right?
Right, Kazun.
Kazun.
And they've added Polski on there, but it was Kazun or Deutsche Kazun.
It was
and-
Deutsche Kazun. Now it's Kazun Polski, huh?
Yeah, right, because there's no love lost from the Poles to the Germans.
How
And-
far was this like drive distance from the church that we just showed? How
Just
far
a few
away?
miles, just a
Oh,
few
really?
miles.
Because this is where
And it-
Peter was born, it said.
And there's hardly anything there. It's just a couple of roads meeting together and a few houses, not like the other village. So there really wasn't much to see here.
Okay. Interesting. So we're talking about this little house 15. If you go back, what's interesting is Peter Franz, that there's not a lot of information about his background other than he was Mennonite and probably came from the Netherlands. But there were 4 children that were born before they moved. They moved to this house in 1850. So you had Peter Franz, who was born in 1846 in this little town, Aschillen, I guess is the name of it, or I don't know how you pronounce that. But there were
Aschillen.
Aschillen, yeah, there were 4 children born there, right? Unfortunately, the first Peter passed. Benjamin was the next one.
Oh, okay.
And then there was another Peter born. He died at 13 days. And then you had Heinrich. So Benjamin and Heinrich then were basically 3 and 1 when they moved to this town here in the house 15.
What do you suppose caused them to move, pick up and just move from Hosland to the number 15?
There's not really a lot of information, but I believe that, well, I'm going to show you in a minute. There were a
Okay.
lot of relationships that occurred.
Yeah.
So this is probably a well-known Mennonite community.
It was.
And the wife, Helena Vedel, may have actually, she may have been from this town.
Okay.
I reread Raymond's book the other night. And this whole area had Mennonite communities. And they all, and all the way up north to the Frisia region in northern Germany. So they were like a network where if someone working in the northern area could ride a day and spend a night with another Mennonite family and leapfrog down like that. And I also don't know, you probably have too, Kevin, this little history written in Grandma's hand, where she says one of her great regrets is that she couldn't find out any more about Peter than that information that you have there.
And Raymond's book has a lot of information, but he also said there's very little known about Peter prior to him coming to the United States. So
Yeah.
there's, records back then probably would have been destroyed or not well kept. But 10 children is a lot. I mean, you think about it, she got married at 21. And Helena died at age 48. So in that 26, 27 years period of time, she had 10 children. And if you look here, Nettie or Agneta, the last one, she died of smallpox at age 7 weeks. So you think about, the kind of the trauma that occurred here for the family too. They had lost 2 children earlier before they moved here. And then once they moved here, they lost 2 more children. So she lost a total of 4 of her kids, which had to be very difficult at that time.
Well, this is not untypical
Mhm,
time, even in the United States.
mhm.
Part of my family that was about the same time, even a little later, lost, 4 or 5 out of 10 children.
Yeah.
So it's,
Now, interesting enough, I copied this from Peggy, a document she sent me. And if you look here, Helena, which is her, I guess, great-great-grandmother, she died in Reedley, Fresno County, California.
that.
So this family all migrated to California, to Woodlake, near Visalia. And and that's where Peggy's from. And there was a big chunk of family out there.
Interesting.
That was not really ever really well known until I met Peggy.
Huh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Kevin,
So,
my
I wanted to mention this house, as typical of the houses there, also included a barn,
yes.
part of the house. And can you go back to that one, just for a
I
second?
actually have a better picture. That's what I was going to show you right here. This picture's better.
Okay,
shows
and
part
you
of the
see
barn.
this, do you see on the right, in the curved branch, kind of just to
This,
the,
this
yeah,
right here, that fulcrum.
that is the well. And there's a bucket attached to the end of that arc that would dip down into the well, and you would hold on to the lower end. So you would dip this thing down into the well, which I'd never seen one like that before.
It had to be a good hickory switch there.
Yeah. Big time.
And then you look like you had somebody there admiring you, taking pictures of the top.
Yes, exactly. And so we didn't want to cause any consternation. But you can see on the left, the picture, well, there were fields behind the house and fields in the front. And according to that map, you know, that you just were on,
Yeah.
people had their fields pretty
So
much in front of their,
So just to get people oriented, this is West Prussia, this is East Prussia, and like you mentioned, they had established Mennonite cities all up and down this river. What's the name of that river, Suzanne?
Vistula,
Vistula. Yeah,
Vistula.
Mm-hmm. So interesting enough, this is Kazoo. Is that what you call it? Kazoo?
Kazoon.
Kazoo is the blue arrow here, the dark one, and they lived here in
Thanks.
Wymysle.
Wymysle, yeah. But those 4 children were born up in this area and this Olschyn. So they must have gone up here for work, or maybe had gone up here
Trading.
because trading something. They were out here for several years, the first several years when they had children, but then came back here to be farmers.
Mm.
So some work, this may a factory or something, who knows what had drawn them up there.
And as Raymond's book points out, the reason we get this confusion with saying that our family's from Russia or Russian Poland, it was because this area, even though it was not Poland, and it was governed by the Russian Tsar. I mean, it was Poland, but it had not been established as a nation, not until 1918. So
Catherine the Great, who's German, invited these Mennonites to come farm this kind of what she called wetlands, because they knew how to use windmills. In fact, there's a windmill right here at the end, which had to be part of the drainage process. See the windmill in this map? So what's interesting is that this whole town right here were all Mennonites. The Franzes were in this house number 15. But in Raymond's book, he lists all the other families that were living here that also ended up in Kansas. So it wasn't like our family just plucked out of this little town and left. The entire town left.
most of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Ratzlaffs, the Unruhls, the Klunks, the Schroeders, they all packed their bags.
Bartles.
Yeah, and they left.
And you can see how close the cemetery is.
That's down here in the green arrow.
Mhm.
And there was a village school, but you said it's no longer there, huh?
I couldn't see a school.
It's probably turned into a
There's
house
just
or
not much
something.
there at all. It's very
Very
depressed
poor.
area. Poor people, very poor.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. So there was, the church was here, the Franzes were here. The cemetery was here. You had then a village school down here. And I can imagine back before they left, it was fairly prosperous the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Being the diligent people they were.
Do you suppose-
Hardworking.
Do you suppose the residents that live there now are still Mennonite or?
No.
Oh,
Not at all.
No, and they're not ethnic German, they're Polish.
Oh.
The Germans, the ethnic Germans, the war, 1938, was it 38 or 39, when Germany invaded Poland? They, just like in all the other countries, the ethnic Germans were left and some of them were killed.
It was September 1st, 1939.
And
And then-
Yeah.
and even
German
there's
people.
separate cemeteries now. There's a German cemetery, a Polish cemetery, and no, they hated the German. Anybody, even though our family had been there for generations, they spoke German, and there were people there who spoke Polish in the area.
Right, right.
So the 6 surviving children that left, and you look at the age here, Benjamin Frantz, which is shown here. No, let's see, this is Benjamin here. He was 27 years old. Henry or Heinrich was 24. Helena, who's in the middle here, she was 22. You had Peter Frantz here on the left. He was 20. John Frantz was 20.
Johann.
And Jacobina was 14. So this picture here was taken 32 years after they arrived, after they had left, right? So they're now mature adults, but they were a fairly young age. And this is what you were talking about, Suzanne. They left because they were all of that age where they would have to go fight in the war.
And the part of the confusion also is that they adopted, apparently, when some of them moved to the United States, some like Heinrich became Henry, Johann became John. So in the Weeby book, they go back and forth. And when I first saw this, I thought it was our grandpa's because it said John Frantz, but that's not our grandpa, even though he looks like our grandpa. That's Johann.
Johann.
That's Connie's grandfather.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah. So Helena, this in the picture that we had, it shows Miss Jacobina Harms. That's not her. That is clearly Helena. And I've looked at some other pictures that show her. This Jacobina looked different. And so Peggy, you were asking me, this comes from a book called The Journey of a Church. This is the first time I ever saw a picture of John and Jacobina Harms. Because she's not shown in any of these big family photos, and I don't know why. They traveled a lot outside of Hillsborough, and she actually and John Harms inherited Peter Frantz Sr.'s farm. They actually continued to live on that farm
In Hillsborough?
Yes,
Or French Creek?
and that's where it's also believed that Peter Frantz Sr. is born. I mean, buried.
Very.
Yeah, he's not in the French Creek Cemetery. So.
I
But you were
have a-
saying,
I
yeah, go
have a
ahead.
question about Jacobina picture.
Mhm.
It could be that Helena married the Bachman and that they were in California. And so in 1906, she could not be on the picture.
Peggy, do you know when they moved to California?
This could be Mrs. Harms right here. I can't see the picture of John and Jacobina Harms. I can't see Jacobina. You say they look different?
Yeah, they do. Are you able to see the screen that we're sharing right now?
I can see the left side, but not all of the right side.
think
So
Okay.
Exactly the same, Kevin. I don't think they look different at all.
Oh, they totally
Yeah,
look different.
I think they look alike too.
Well, they look like sisters, but they don't think they're the
They're
same
talking-
person.
Yeah.
look, in 1906, if she was 14 when they came, how old would she be in Jacobina? How old would she be in
46.
Pardon?
Would
36?
have been, what, 46 in the left-hand picture?
Mhm.
And in the right, she's older.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's her.
I'm gonna pull up a picture that Peggy sent me. Peggy has
They
a
were-
picture.
We're still in Kansas in 1906.
Yeah, because they came to California in what, 1912, Peggy?
I think it was earlier than that.
Well,
I'd
we have a document that I'm gonna share with everybody that Peggy
Okay,
had sent
okay.
our way. And it has a picture of Helena in there. So these are the mysteries that we're trying to still figure out. But in Raymond's book, he shows this exact picture, this 1906 photo.
Yes.
And in that, he has it marked that is Helena.
Uh-huh.
So
He has
if you
it
go to
marked.
page 80, see here, let me show you. On page 80,
Mm-hmm.
he's got that. But on the bottom, see that? It does all that blurring. That's why I should turn that off. on the bottom, it says that it says, Miss Jacobina Franz Harms is missing. And so we have this old photo in our family, but somebody wrote Jacobina in there. It's wrong.
Oh,
Mhm.
Hmm.
Send us down the wrong rabbit hole.
Mine's not like that. Mine doesn't have it crossed out. The ones that grandma.
I crossed it out
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
just to bring
Mhm.
it to your attention.
Stop you rewriting history too quickly here, Kevin.
No, I'm not. You know what? I think Raymond, to be honest with you, in this book that he wrote, the John Frantz People, he is very detail oriented.
He is very detailed oriented, but he
I love
could
it.
make a mistake.
Oh, but I love it. I mean,
Get about a
he
brother.
gives some great information. I mean, really detailed stuff. He's
Yeah, he's very, very detailed.
Think what he could have done with the internet.
unstoppable, no doubt.
Yeah, he and my husband worked with him for 6 years till he died. So yeah.
So this
Brilliant.
is these photographs show you the fields across from the house, the area.
Huh.
That's a really
Like
old.
Kansas.
It looks like Oklahoma and Kansas. It's flat. It's a
Yeah.
river valley, and this area floods. And that's an old Polish tractor. And like I said, they had just finished harvesting pumpkins. And at the time, I think they were harvesting sugar beets on the left.
Yeah, I see him in a big pile out there. Yeah.
So yeah, it looks just the same.
I bet you wanted to jump in and help do some harvesting.
I wanted to jump up on that
Tractor.
pumpkin tractor and
That's amazing.
not. I
go.
wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
No, not really.
Go back to your roots.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's
So-
a better picture of the church.
Yeah, this is a little bit better of church, and it was built in 1862, according to the book, Raymond's book, which is just 12 years before the actual Frantz family left. So you can imagine that was kind of a brand new church in 1874.
Yeah, because the other one burned down.
Oh, is that what
the
happened?
Yeah, it's in the book. The earlier one burned down.
Okay, so they had a church, it burned down, they rebuilt with this one.
hmm
I got
Actually,
you.
they had a pretty nice house and a pretty nice church then. It's a wonder they left, you know.
I agree.
They weren't poor, but it probably took something like the draft to get
Right,
them out of there.
Well,
right.
Well, in
Kevin has that article.
Franz's book, it kind of explains why they left. They were brought into the Poland or Prussia because of the transcription or into the army. So Catherine the Great offered them land, I think, because she knew that they were good farmers.
Mhm.
And then after Catherine the Great died, then the Russian army tried to put them into the service.
Mhm.
So
hmm
that's when I think they decided to leave.
Yeah. that's right.
And they were being taxed terribly high.
Mm.
Oh, really?
The government taxed the Mennonites because they wanted to keep certain things, have their own school or whatever, and so they
Uh-huh.
paid extra taxes. And then finally it got, I guess, so there was economics concern too.
That's good to know.
That makes sense.
Yeah. High taxes drove them out. That's what
Yeah.
drove me out of California.
There you go. And what about Peggy? She went to New Mexico. How about that?
Yeah, that's beautiful. So talking about, again, the children that passed away, we had two of them, Peter Franz the first, Peter Franz the second, had passed away in that town up north. So, with the kids dying there, maybe also the living conditions weren't that good, right? So they probably said, let's go back. But
Well,
once
for
they were back
everybody.
there, Maria Franz had passed away. And then their youngest, in 1865, Nettie passed away. So, those children, and that's what I wanted to show the cemetery here, because you were alluding to this. So in the cemetery, I can imagine that Helena's buried there,
Mhm.
and two of her children are buried there.
Right. And this is the German cemetery, which is very, not surprisingly, very neglected.
Oh,
It's been, most of the headstones have been damaged or destroyed. There are just a few things left. You can see how overgrown it is. And then there was a Polish cemetery also, and it was, currently being used, up to date, and very well maintained and meticulous. So there are no Germans around here, any ethnic Germans around here anymore. But clearly, there were flowers on that one grave, and the names of the few that you could read were so familiar from Fairview, the Cleavers, the Bartel, or
Yeah, I wrote
Schroeder.
that. Yeah, Cleaver. How do you say that?
Cleaver. Well, they said Cleaver in Fairview, but the late,
Cleaver.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's yeah. So I mean, it's just when you read the names in the books, they're all the people that we grew up hearing those names. So I don't know what.
Suzanne, when you
Go
took
ahead.
these photos, could you how many tombstones were you able to see? Were there just a couple, or?
Yeah, just what I photographed that you could still make anything out.
I mean, are we talking like 10 that you could see, or how many were you able physically to see?
Well, there were broken ones, but really these three were the most intact.
Uh-huh.
And then, they were mainly just broken or gone or nothing.
Okay. Or nothing.
So, and people often would use tombstones for building foundations and things like that. So
Dear.
there really wasn't much.
So, all right. So now we kind of appreciate all these photos. I remember I've kept them all these years, Suzanne, because I was so just
I'm
fascinated
glad.
by it. Yeah. And scanned them in. But you can imagine that what happened was essentially there was a gentleman by the name of C.B. Schmidt, who was actually a merchant in Kansas. And he was recruited by the railroad because he could speak German. And he was sent back to Europe to go recruit Mennonites from Russia and Europeans in general to settle the Santa Fe Railroad land.
Oh.
So he was the salesman. He was the real estate broker. and he just because he spoke German, they recruited him, and he got paid probably a pretty good commission. And he went back and ran advertisements in newspapers and let people know of all this land that was for sale. And if you look at those red sectors, those are all Santa Fe that were being sold during that time. And so this Marion County, which is where Hillsborough is, you see all the little towns these were all little Mennonite towns. So this was not just a simple, the Franzes left, Poland and came. No, this was a massive movement, organized, funded, and put together to get them out of that Eastern Europe where they were getting overtaxed and recruited, and they were like, this is not going well. We don't have our religious freedom. And they were recruited by this gentleman right here.
Was he a Mennonite?
I
don't-
don't know. I
Connie?
don't know. He has a name Schmidt, which could be
Well, German, but
German. Yeah.
But you can imagine, the word would have traveled quickly in newspapers there, because if you read these are kind of like some of the things that were in German. Like it said, man, thousands of acres for sale, prosperous prairie land. I mean, if you imagine, and you're over there a farmer, you're like, let's go. It's low cost, so we get religious freedom. And the Civil War by this time was over. So, and the United States had kind of reestablished itself. And I'm sure those Germans were like, let's go. And they loaded up, basically got it to Hamburg.
oh, that's neat.
And they went on the SS Westphalia it was interesting is that they went from Hamburg, they stopped in a little town along the way and came over to New York. So you can imagine this was how the ship appeared in 1874.
It says pre-1878, so
Yeah, because what they did is they revamped it and added more steam engines. They
Yeah,
added
that
more
makes sense.
steamers. So it was actually would go under sail and it was powered by steam.
And where did you get this information, these pictures from, Kevin?
I pulled these off of a heritage ship out of a Norwegian website that shows all these old ships.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But these are pictures of the immigrant ship that was the SS Westphalia.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so the other thing that's really interesting about it is that because they were all adults except for Jacobina, they were able to bring a large wooden case. See this? This went down below as stowage. This went down below deck. So everyone that was an adult and bought an adult ticket got to bring a fairly large. So you can imagine that was filled with china, that was filled with
Blanket.
Mhm.
blankets,
Mhm.
pillows, seeds. They
Yeah.
actually brought some of
Mhm.
their actual wheat that they're
Tools.
known
Yeah.
for. And then up above, they were able to take a wicker basket that was this size. So the perilous journey overseas, they would, if you're an adult, you got to store this downstairs with china, any of the valuables they had.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to put that in there, and then up above they would have this basket where they, and this is about the size. So they put their Bible, their daily garments, and toothbrushes and stuff in this.
That's true. That's right. That basket is in really good condition for how
It
old.
is.
Really?
These pictures were taken at the Hillsborough Museum when I visited up there. This Steve Fest, it was at the time, was working there. He gave me a wonderful tour, and I want everybody to be able to go there and see these wonderful pictures and spend some time there. I was relatively rushed because it was late at night, and he was finishing up mowing his lawn at 8:30 and came back and met me.
He would do
kinda-
that.
I kind of forced my way in, to be honest.
You know, that guy knew Russian. He had lived in Russia for a while. Steve
Yeah.
Fath. I don't know if he told you that, but he was very good.
He's still very good. I just contacted him this morning to ask him more questions about this. So
Good.
we stay in contact. That was one of the families that came over, and that's what I want to show you next. If this came off of Dee Dee's genealogy site, but what's interesting is if you actually go and look at this, this is actually the manifest.
The
Yeah.
Westphalia.
Yeah. And so if you look here, see this, like they talk about, so we have here the Franzes, the Unruhs, the Ratzlaffs.
Oh my.
So Melvin Ratzlaff, I talked to him the other night. His grandfather, David Ratzlaff, came over on the ship
At 19 years of
at
age.
19 years of age.
And in
yeah.
Fairview, they were the Unruhs and the Ratzlaffs.
Yeah. Now
You
the
remember-
Schroeders.
And Ratzlaff is part of our family too. Waldo Ratzlaff was one of the pallbearers
they
at
married.
Grandpa's funeral.
They
Oh,
marry each other, yeah. And interesting, if you go back and look at this original document, you flip the page before, it's all the Schroeder families on there.
mhm.
So
So
does
I
this,
can-
oh,
Mhm.
excuse me
Go
for
ahead,
butting
Suzanne.
in, Kevin.
No, no,
Can
go
you
ahead.
can you see, or Dee Dee, can you see on here what class, were they in steerage, or can you tell by looking at that?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
I don't know if it tells you that. It definitely tells you, hang on, let me see.
There were 849 passengers on here, okay? And the captain's name was Stahl, which means steel in German.
Ah,
And along the way, they passed several icebergs. That's amazing to me, right?
Scary.
It's scary, is right. Thinking about the Titanic.
yeah.
And then the other thing was that it left actually Hamburg and went to let's see, it went to Have. I don't even know where
Le Havre.
Where is that?
Havre.
Where is that? Is that Norway?
Out of
No,
France,
it's Netherlands,
not
The
I
France.
Netherlands?
think.
Thought it was-
HAV,
Le Havre.
yeah.
RE or so.
So the 22nd they left Hamburg and then they stopped over and then departed again out of
Le Havre.
Le
Le
Havre.
Havre.
Le Havre being
It's a city.
harbor.
It's a big city.
Yeah, exactly. But the interesting thing is that, and Dee Dee, we didn't know this before, but if you go to the page before or the page after on this manifest, it shows out of those 849 passengers, a big percentage of them were Mennonites from that town.
It's also all in German, so it's really hard to understand.
Kein Problem. Wir können Deutsch sprechen.
Dang.
And
Uh,
script. It's
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
however you say it is in France.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's in
Jen.
France? Okay.
Yeah.
Dee Dee found this somewhere.
So
Yeah.
I have an ancestry page that a girlfriend of mine does ancestry, and so she has gone back and gotten all kinds of stuff. But this is on my ancestry page, and I can get any of you guys into my ancestry page. But yeah, and so you can flip back and forth, you can enlarge it, you can go look at it. Absolutely.
Wow.
If you
Yeah.
guys, I can put all your emails in my ancestry page, and you guys can all get in.
So,
Hmm.
so I'm going to show you something here. This right here, see this right here? This like parentheses, or I don't know what you
Yep.
call this thing here. It says something in here like, blah, 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 Mennonite something. this, and so
Huh.
all these people were traveling together, and the same over here. All these people were traveling together. And if you look at this, you've got, you know, Cornelius, I don't know, it's hard to read this old script, but I bet, Dee Dee, we could do some investigation, because on Ancestry, it actually tells you what it is. But see
Mhm.
this parentheses over here? This is also part of that same group. Like, so they were saying like, oh, all these people are traveling together. And there's a lot of Corneliuses, and there's a lot of Heinrichs, and a lot of Peters in there.
And Johans.
And Johans,
you-
yeah.
That is so confusing, all those same names, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, so
That
you
is
think of-
amazing what Dee Dee has found here. I have
Oh,
not
yeah.
seen that before.
yeah, it is amazing. This is what she was saying about if Raymond would have known about the internet. There's so much incredible information out there. Really exciting stuff.
Mhm.
So it's amazing to think that they went from here to starting the internet. That's what I was getting ready to say. So, you know, I have to be honest with everybody. We took the dot that was behind the com and we put it in front of the com because it looked better.
We
But here's-
colorized it too.
But Peggy,
Yeah.
yeah, we put a color. And if you notice, we put a chicken in the front there too. Like, see that?
Oh,
Chicken wasn't there before.
cute.
People who do historical documents do not like you.
No,
I know.
that
Suzanne
gets my
can't stand
hackles
it.
up. That gets my hackles up. You should put the original one next to it so people can see that too.
I can do that. I've got the original. Actually, it's out with, you know, Laura and Laura's here at my house right now. She's in the other room.
Is she watching on TV?
Yeah, what?
Laura's right there.
Hey.
If you watch this, I'm gonna go out and say hi.
Mark, the shins.
The external.
So there's Heinrich in the middle in the dark, and then our grandpa John on the right.
Oh, on the picture.
Mhm.
Okay.
What did he do? He left us?
Well, I was gonna put Laura on.
Where did Laura go?
Yeah.
Hold on, I was gonna.
You should sit.
And,
Hi, Laura.
There you go.
Why are you in Florida, Laura?
Evan and I had some vacation time, so we went down to Savannah and
Oh,
Tybee Island, and tomorrow
Oh,
we're gonna go to
neato.
St. Augustine
oh,
and do some
wow.
stuff, Amelia
Nice.
Island. And we
Nice.
wanted to see Kevin and Kelly. So Kelly's here too.
Hi,
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
The cousins are back together. We're getting ready to relaunch francehardware.com, so we're putting together a business plan. Laura's going to be one of our drivers.
deliver.
Now,
Oh, man.
That says Helena. That should just be Helena Vadel, not Vadel. There's an N on there.
Yeah, you're right. That's a mistake. Yeah.
And in Warsaw, you know, Weedles, we had Weedles, we called it Weedles in Fairview, Weedles grocery store. Mervyn Weedle and his brother. Remember, and grandma used to sell her eggs. She'd sell her eggs to the Weedles. And in Warsaw, there is a very famous sweet shop called Weedles, and they have their own, or Vadels, they call it Vadels, own chocolate that they make. And I went there, and you order hot chocolate, and it comes in a bowl with a spoon.
Whoa.
Wow. Oh,
And I had 2 bowls of it, and it's really good chocolate.
Oh, sounds scrumptious.
it does. That's amazing. Hmm.
Let's see. I'm
Does
trying to pull up.
everybody, Kevin, does everybody know everybody?
No, go ahead, Dee Dee.
I know Uncle Bob's on here too, but he's hiding right
Yes.
now. We're gonna start with the top of the alphabet. I guess that would be you, Alan.
Hello, I'm Alan Costley. I live in Portland, Oregon. It used to be a good crop, and I've kind of gone to seed.
He's our Aunt Wilma's son. He's
Aunt
our
Wilma's
first
son.
cousin.
Okay.
Wilma
Aunt
was
Wilma's
his
son.
mom.
Okay. And Alan, where did you grow up? In Southern California, or where'd you?
Oklahoma.
You grew up in Oklahoma. Okay.
Mm.
And yeah,
In Kansas,
and yeah, Kansas City
Kansas City.
eventually, right?
And you have siblings,
An older brother who has passed,
Okay.
Byron.
who lived in Crystal River, Florida.
Oh, really? That's not too far from me.
Hmm.
Okay.
and then related to also is Nancy. Nancy's a first cousin, and Nancy, was it your mom?
Hilda.
It was Hilda. Yeah.
So Hilda and Wilma were the two daughters.
Yeah.
Nancy, I got to tell you a funny story. I got stuck at Dee Dee's house in Arizona, so I couldn't fly home. So I drove my entire family across the country, and I said, "We're coming through Oklahoma. I think I've got an Aunt Hilda here." So we stopped by your mom and dad's house, and we saw them. And she goes, "No one ever comes and visits me in Oklahoma." I'm like, "I kind of know why. It's not really most people fly overhead."
Was that in McAllister?
That was in
Yes.
McAllister, and she loved the fact that you all stopped by. I
Aw.
remember her talking about that.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
4 small kids in the car.
And Kathy, are you on here?
Yes.
Why don't you have your video on?
Oh, well, I don't know. Let's
We can't see you. This is Nancy's sister.
Here I
There
am.
you are.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Hi,
Kathy, you look a lot like
everybody.
you look a lot like your mother.
I do look like mother
You look like grandma,
and grandma. Hmm.
and I look like grandpa.
I think you look like your mom, Suzanne.
Do you? Well, I don't. I walk like grandpa because one time I was walking down the street in Fairview when I was a kid, and some man came up to me and said, "Are you related to John Frantz?" I walk just like him.
Oh,
Wacky or what?
That's like a backhanded compliment. there.
Exactly. You walk like your grandpa.
Oh my goodness.
So Kathy, where do you live?
Snowmass Village, Colorado.
You're in Colorado.
Yep.
And Nancy, where are you?
I am just 40 miles away from there. Used to live in Snowmass. I'm in Glenwood Springs now. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then got my dad and my dad's brother Bob, and then my dad's sister Rita.
And my crazy uncle Dennis, who's also an engineer.
oh.
And very Irish.
That's right.
I
That's
don't know if we
awesome.
have Bob's shutters
What?
on the screen there. Is that what?
He was on her.
Wow.
There's
Yeah, I saw 'em.
Bob's.
Oh, okay.
See,
Says
Connie, I
Bob.
told you you got a lot of family out there. See, I don't even know half of these aunts and uncles. These are my dad's first cousins that I don't get to see very often.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Peggy, I've talked to Peggy on the phone, but I've never seen her in person.
Oh, how about that?
That's awesome.
And how's the Peggy related to?
Peggy, you can answer that.
Oh, okay. I don't even know where I am on here anymore. Helena was my great grandmother.
She was one of Heinrich's sisters.
Yes.
Heinrich's and John's the sister. Yeah, one of the sisters. And they're the ones that went to Woodland. Well, they stayed in Kansas until she's the one that married Daniel Bachman. And when he passed, he died in 1907, I believe. And then in about 1911, the family kind of started immigrating, moving out to California.
Okay,
that.
that's when it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Dee Dee, let me share my screen again. I'm going to show you. This is a document. I'm going to send it out to everybody. This is the descendants of Daniel Bachman. Peggy sent this to me. This is great. I'm getting all this
Good,
all this
good.
free research done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so what happened is that Daniel Bachman was in Illinois, and he had 2 kids, and then the wife passed away.
Right.
So Helena came over from Prussia, and she was a housekeeper, and I guess she was taking care of the kids. But then they got married,
Mhm.
and then she had, look at this, she had 14
Wow.
kids.
Oh,
Look
what
at
a
this.
beautiful photograph.
Look at
Oh,
this,
that's
14
wonderful.
kids.
Oh.
So and Peggy, who is your grandfather in this picture?
He's in the front on the left. The gentleman on the left in the front. is
Over
my
over
grandfather.
here.
Right there?
Yeah.
And that was
He was
that
one
was
of the younger. He was one of the younger. There were 3 little boys at the end, and he's the oldest of the 3 little boys. So
so he's Daniel Dan E. Bachman. He is a Daniel, right? That's who
Pardon?
that's is that who your grandfather is? Is Daniel?
is Daniel. Yes. is
Daniel
my
E.
grandfather.
Bachman, yeah, born in
And look, there's a Menno, I mean, in Jacobina. So your family were Mennonites too, I assume, right, Peggy?
In the family in the photo is
Well-
Mennonite, but when they went to California, they did not stay with the Mennonite church.
Mm-hmm.
They went, I think they ended up going to a Baptist church or something.
Did they immigrate from the same area in Poland that our family did?
No, they came from,
Okay, so Daniel Bachman, it says here, this is interesting. He's from Kaiserslautern, Germany.
Oh,
Kaiserslautern
okay.
is on the it's actually south. I think it's on the Rhine River, actually, Kaiserslautern. And so he's from Rhineland Falls.
Okay.
All right. So he immigrated to the United States in 1857 at the age of 24. And then he married a Barbara Berger.
Right.
Okay. And then they had 2 children.
You
They actually had 4 children. They were twins. I think it said that they were born.
yeah, she
yeah.
was.
He was Bavarian.
She was Bavarian. So she gave birth to twins who also died in Summerfield, St. Clair County, Illinois. She was 30 years old. She passed away in 1872. And then he married Helena, right? The one of the Franz girls in 1875. And so she raised these boys. In addition, she had 14 kids.
Now, is that total with the 3 boys? Or is
Not all of them lived to adulthood. There were a couple that one.
Let's see. No, that was okay. You're right. 1, 2, then so 3. You're right. So there were 11 children. Mm-hmm.
Peggy, do you have any relatives named Butterfield?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, because somebody
But I
contacted me.
was going to tell Connie in Reedley, there are some descendants of Dan Bachman's family that live in the Reedley area.
Okay.
Their last name is Avey, E-W-Y.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever gone to church there, the gentleman that plays the organ is his wife is a great granddaughter of Helena.
Wow.
Just
Look at
now.
that.
Now, yeah.
Okay. So his name is not Avi though.
No, his name is actually Bolt, B-O-L-D-T.
Okay.
And they actually have a pretty nice website. They raise organic peaches and plums. And they have, if you go to D-E, like D is in David, E is in elephant, Bolt Farms, they have go to their webpage and they have a little information about their family. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that would be good. All right.
They're going to wonder why they had this surge in sales of peaches.
Yeah, they talk about
they
talk about how they didn't have a market for their peaches and they were just falling off the trees, and so they decided to go organic and have developed they've been on their farm over 100 years. Their family, someone in the family's been there over 100 years. So
Well,
That's
that would
amazing.
be 1921 or so. Yeah, that's very likely.
yeah. So
Does Mr. Bolt, by any chance, our granddaughter, Laurelyn, is taking organ lessons. She's 16 and she started when she was 15 from the organist at the.
that would be him.
There you go.
I bet it is. So I'll ask my daughter. I'll
Connie,
call.
can you do some homework for the next call so we know if that's what's going on? 'Cause that would be
Another
incredible.
cousin.
That's incredible.
Yeah. He actually has an organ. I think it's a pipe organ in his barn on their property.
Makes sense if he's a Franz. That makes sense. My grandpa Ernie, would play the organ.
Yeah, Ernie can
His
play by
barn.
ear.
So what's your granddaughter's name?
Laurelyn, and she married, her father is Zimmerman. So, and I married an Isaac. So she's Laurelyn Zimmerman. Yeah, the names, the women lose the name. Unless you hyphenate it.
Not me.
And you can't hyphenate forever. I don't know how to do that. So we lose it. That's
I
sad.
never changed my name. And I've been married twice. I told my husband he could change his name to Frantz, but
Oh,
he didn't.
he
Oh,
did.
he missed out on an opportunity. He could have been on these calls with us.
Now, this family of Daniel Bachman, is that lady as a widow then? Is she on that picture?
Okay, she's right here. Let me zoom in because this is what I wanted to show you. And this is why I think that, let's see. If I
I'm
can-
losing her completely.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna get it back.
Now I
on.
got it.
Okay, look at that picture. That's Helena. And that is the same that I was showing you
Yeah,
earlier. See
that's
that?
for sure.
You said if she's older, no.
I think that's a daughter. Isn't this the grandma over?
That's the mother.
That's
That's
the
the
mother.
mother.
And this is Daniel Bachman, her husband.
Wow, that sure looks
While
like
he's
that
living.
picture.
While
From
he's
Kai-
living.
From
Okay.
Kaiserslautern, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna send this Peggy, if it's okay, I'm gonna send everybody in this call this document because now we're finding organists in Reedley. You know what I mean?
Well, and let's see. His name is David Bolt. His wife's name is Dorothy. She's Dorothy Avey. Her
Yeah.
grandmother was Matilda. And I believe Matilda's in the center. I'd have to look at my picture. What does it say? Can you scroll it down? I can't
Yeah,
see it.
let me look here. Yeah.
Wherever Matilda, whichever one's Matilda.
So it's
Matilda Bachman, right?
Matilda. Yeah, she's in the center in the front. They lived in Reedley.
Matilda
And that would be her
Bachman
granddaughter.
Avey. Matilda Bachman Avey, if I got that right.
Avey. And it's spelled, yeah, E-W-Y. Yeah.
But my mom always pronounced it Avey. She talked
Avey.
about her cousins, the Avies.
Uh-huh. They live on Lackjack actually in Parlier. But
so
yeah.
Peggy, so you must have a lot of, first cousins that came from this family. You have a pretty big family out there in California.
That is it.
Actually,
No, not anymore.
I know the oldest son who's Henry, who's in the center in the back.
Yeah, tall.
His
very
mother
tall.
his mother was not Helena. He was one of the
Yeah, the two
orphaned boys.
Mhm.
Oh,
I know his family. His family came to Woodlake, and there are a lot of those, and there's still some of those family that still live there.
So on the
And-
last call, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say.
No, finish. Please finish.
Well, I was gonna say to his left is Anna, and Anna, I know one of her granddaughters. They moved. She was in Woodlake. Her husband, the gentleman that she married, was actually from Russia. Came to Woodlake as a single man, and they met and married. But they ended up moving to Upland, and he owned a store there.
Okay.
But I know her granddaughter, and Samuel, who's on the very back, is also one of the two sons, the second
Yes.
son. Helena's not his mother.
Right.
He didn't have any children. And then going to Henry the other way is Emma in the back there.
Right. Here.
And I actually know one of her granddaughters. I was trying to
She's
think.
very
how many
pretty.
children-
The girls are all very pretty in here. You look at how
And
pretty
then next to him is John, is on the end there, and he did not have any children. He was a professor. He taught German and Spanish
really?
in Modesto, California,
At a university or
at a junior. I think it was a junior college.
okay.
Yeah, and in front of him is Martha. She has 3 children, I think. I do know I've met one of her granddaughters, but
Mhm.
apparently they were a very dysfunctional family.
Oh, really? In what
It was
regard?
like, well, I think it's like they were very, I don't know a polite way to say this. They were very religious. And if the kid, they like the girls' boyfriends didn't go to church or something. Anyway, there was just some kind of animosity there.
Gotcha.
They were
in the
rigid
family.
and conservative.
Mhm.
And then in front of her is Albert, and he never married.
The little Albert right here in the front. Huh?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then in the center in the back is a little boy. His name is Minnow. He's the youngest. I know some of his family. In fact, if anyone's on Ancestry, Minnow has a grandson named Robert Bachman, who has a really nice tree on Ancestry.
Interesting.
And then the other girl by my grandfather, her name was Susan,
Right
and
here,
she never
Susan.
married. On the left,
On the
down here on the left, in the second one in from the left is Susan, Aunt Susan,
That's
and
amazing.
she never.
How many of those siblings did not marry or did not have children? That is amazing.
Oh, 1, 2. Oh, and there 3, 4, at least 4 of them. Oh, there's another girl behind Susan is Jacobina, and she died when she was 24, I think. She had TB.
Wow. So this picture had to be while they were still in Kansas, because
they were in Kansas. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things they show here, for all your farmers involved here, is they were farming in Kansas. There's some threshing equipment with the family photos, I guess. Now, did you put this document together, Peggy, or who put this together?
I put it together.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Wonderful. I'll send it out there.
I was gonna say I don't have a published book like all the other members. I thought I should.
Well, there's still time.
You need a ghostwriter. Connie's got some time on her hands.
No, you write it down.
We'll put it on
In fact,
Ancestry.
one of the AV sons, one of Matilda's son, Dan AV, Connie might know that name. He did a lot of research, but I haven't. I've seen some of his stuff he has, but I haven't seen all of it, so I don't know.
Connie, on all these Franz reunions that you had, did you guys ever have any Bachmans come back from California to attend, or?
I don't remember any. We have a Burmese cat, and that's who this is. I don't know if you can see her.
Oh, look at that. Precious.
Kitty. She's our Burmese kitty. Anyway, Mother talked about the Bachmans a lot, and that they were at Woodlake, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me because I was pretty young, and when you're a kid, you don't really listen that well to.
Right.
But I do remember her. I think she and Dad may have gone up to Woodlake sometime and visited up there.
Yeah.
Well, and if they ever went to Reedley, the Bachmans probably went to Reedley to see them. They lived, it was maybe, I don't know, 30 miles away.
Right. That could be the way it went too, because my Aunt Anna was also in Reedley. She was a Franz, my mother's sister. And so the Bachmans may have come down and visited both of those sisters, sure. And
actually quite a few of these people in this picture are buried in the cemetery in Reedley.
Yes, isn't that amazing? So would that have been by the First Mennonite Church then? Would they have maybe had the service there? I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't go to any. I mean, I don't remember going to any of the services, but they may have had the services there.
The AVs were active in the General Conference Mennonite Church in Reedley, and they might have just, I don't know why, but they were buried in Reedley, right?
So Connie and Peggy, did you know each other before this?
No.
So you need to exchange email addresses for sure.
Well,
right.
Peggy asked for.
I asked for Connie's.
But I indirectly gave it to you by copying you on this email. I figured it'd be better to talk on the Zoom first, and then now you guys have a connection and can follow up.
Well, I wanted Connie to give permission for me to have her email.
Sure, that would be fine.
Yeah.
I have kind of a strange email in that I'm still on Tabor's email, Tabor College. I worked there 20 years, and they just really gave me privileges.
You're professor emeritus is what you are.
And so they don't, I mean, I don't have to worry about it if things, I mean, it's wonderful.
Connie, were you a professor?
No, well, I directed what was called the Lifelong Learning Program.
Uh-huh.
And I had a secretary for a while, but I just really enjoyed it, and it was really fun. And I built the program is what happened. And so they really liked it. I mean, the administration liked it. And so they just let me stay on
That's great.
with email.
That's awesome.
ConnieI@tabor.edu.
Yeah.
It's
And
very
Peggy, I'm going to send out this
Oh.
document to everybody that was on here, or you could send it out. Just reply all with your document.
Yeah,
That'd be
that's fine.
fine.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting to see the Bachmans on there. There's the other family I want to highlight in the next call that we have is Benjamin Franz. He had 3 boys, and it's kind of an interesting history. The mothers passed away when their boys were young, and then he remarried, and his wife, the second wife, passed away. And the family, Peter Franz and his wife, adopted the youngest child. And he actually ended up in California as well. So on one of our future calls, we'll go through that. So the other thing I want to say is that there is some discussion about where Peter Franz Sr. is buried. And French Creek Cemetery was established after Peter Franz Sr. died. So in the book, and we can go over this on the next call, what I would like to do, Connie, and I don't know if there's ever been discussion, I would love to put a headstone out in the French Creek Cemetery for Peter Franz
Definitely.
Sr.
Definitely.
And just everybody can donate, and we do that and come to Hillsboro in the spring and have a family reunion or something, but really honor him, because I'll be really honest with you. The fact that he took his 6 children, came to the United States, really established an incredible opportunity for the rest of us. We've had a wonderful life here. I look at my dad in retirement, man. The guy fishes every day. I mean,
So
we
Kevin,
just, yeah.
how can we do that? How can we send
was
you a check or something? Or
Yeah, well, we'll put it together. We can get like a GoFundMe going. Dee Dee's good at this. She works for a nonprofit.
And Connie would know who makes the headstones in the
That's
area.
correct. Yeah.
10 miles away is a headstone company, and they did all of them for my parents and my brothers.
And I would love to
Good job.
I would love to put one out there. Now, Helena is buried in Poland, but you know what? We may want to honor her as well.
Well,
You know,
her
and we-
name would certainly be on there, and just put where she's buried on there.
Yes. And even though we don't have pictures of them or anything, we have a pretty good indication of what they would have looked like. And I just think it would be a nice thing to honor them, you know. And it would be nice to go back to Hillsboro and do that. And so in the spring,
To dedicate it.
to dedicate that, I really think it'd be great. And it gives us all something to look forward to. And it's not that expensive to get a headstone.
Heck no. We should,
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Do
So
you
that's,
need,
I had not thought of that, but that is a good idea. Yeah.
yeah. Go
I
ahead, Dad.
mean, that gives you, it is the best context for it. There is a farm where we know that that he bought, according to Raymond's, I don't know, what do you call it? The township records or something.
Yes.
But it
And
wouldn't be
he's-
taken care of. Now, the French Creek Cemetery will be taken care of, hopefully.
Who we would have to contact who's ever in charge of French Creek Cemetery as well.
Right.
There's an association and that land actually was donated by the Schroeders, or sold by the Schroeder and the Frantz family to create the French Creek Cemetery.
Huh.
And it's up there. It's in Raymond's book, shows that the land, and Dad and I have been looking at that. So in the future call, what I wanted to talk about is a little bit of the mystery of where Peter Franz potentially is buried. And we will never find that gravestone. I talked with Marvin Ratzloff this last week, asking, because he farms that land now. He goes, you know, that red barn's gone. So I think it'd be impossible to find it. If Raymond couldn't find it, there's no way I'm going to find it. But I
Well,
think we could-
Kevin, we're going to need to buy a plot too, to
Well,
erect a
maybe.
headstone.
Yeah.
on.
That
Yeah,
wouldn't
so-
be, it would not be expensive though.
No.
I mean, it's not like California or Florida or something. There is one person we know, Brian Stuckey from Gossel, which is a different kind of Mennonite than we were, but he hunts for graves. He's got one of these stick things or something.
You mean a
You know-
metal detector?
Dowsing, is it called
Oh, a
that?
dowsing thing?
Oh, yeah. No.
I don't know.
Do you know that
what is wicker?
our grandpa, John Franz, used a dowser, the stick, to find where to drill water
Water.
wells on the
So it
farm.
isn't dowsing. Brian is a real intelligent person. He taught, and he's very creative. And he's probably 75 years old by now. He's a retired school teacher. But that's his love, is to find where people are buried and that the farmers won't plow over it.
Oh, we need to contact him.
I think we do.
You do that, Kevin.
We'll get him on that. We'll get him on it with the little hickory switch out there. Like, oh, I found it.
Well, I mean, you have to know where to put. You don't want to run into somebody else.
Well, I think it would be difficult to exhume his remains and put it over there. I think it'd be hard to find. I've talked with Marvin. Marvin Resloff is 90 years old, and he farms that land. He goes, I've never seen any kind of tombstone or anything. It was supposed to be next to the little red schoolhouse. And we'll go into the clues in the future, but on the next call, what I like to do is talk about Benjamin Franz and his 3 boys.
Yeah.
And talk about Peter Franz, where he's buried, and then really maybe do some research where we can figure out how to get a tombstone and put it in French Creek. I think it would be a nice touch. That's something that I personally would like to do.
Yeah, that's better. My
You gotta
rabbit
get on
trail,
Yeah.
my rabbit trail was kind of dumb. I really do kind of like to go on a rabbit trail, and that's not.
Yeah.
If Marvin says it's plowed up already, let's not go there. I mean,
Yeah, I think it may be hard. Yeah.
Connie, what
It's-
was the name of the company that makes the memorials, the tombstones?
Marion, Kansas.
Well, there's probably not that many in Marion.
There's
Kansas.
only one in Marion, Kansas, and it could be Art Memorial, ART, like Art Memorial.
Okay. Okay.
Something Memorial. I
Okay.
have.
We'll find it. We'll find it.
Okay. I have to be honest. I have a cousin, Laura, and her husband here. They want to go to the
Yeah.
beach. And I got to
Yeah.
take them down to the beach. 'Cause
Yeah.
We're only a block away.
I gotta go
So
too.
we have to go to the beach. So we'll set up a call for November,
Hey.
probably after Thanksgiving, huh, Dee?
November's gonna be tough because that's all Thanksgiving and then we go into the holidays.
That is going to be tough.
Yeah.
It was maybe beginning of December and then move into January if you guys
Why
want
don't
to.
we do that? Yeah, we'll do something in December. That way everyone gets the holiday spirit. So the next thing, you got to wear your ugly sweater.
I want to thank Kevin for putting all these visuals together. That was a lot of work, and
Yeah.
I think it really added a lot, and I appreciate
Oh,
it. So
yeah.
thank you, Kevin.
No
Yeah.
problem. It was easy. I just did it like in my spare
At
time with my
work.
remodeling project.
Yeah. I bet.
Well,
So anyway, I appreciate
Yeah.
everyone calling in. It was
coming.
wonderful to meet everybody. Nancy, I've never met you in person, I don't think so.
No, it's great to meet you. I did watch the video from the last Zoom you all had, so.
Perfect. And we've recorded this one and we'll hand it off too. So hopefully it won't bore all of our relatives. But it's
Well,
not-
Kevin, Nancy, and her husband are heavy duty cyclists and stuff too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, they
Yeah.
called me Tour de France.
Sort of friends. That's a good one.
All right. Everybody have a great Sunday. And appreciate it all the
Nice
time.
to
It's
see you
fun.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Kathy, great seeing you
Bye. Good to
guys.
see you all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Honey. And nice to meet Peggy.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys
Bye.
too.
Bye,
Yeah.
Peggy.
Very good. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.